welcome to Lovin' Life's Journey DIY. If you are new to my channel, my name is Chantel and I love to do Dollar Tree DIYs on a budget, and sometimes just some random DIYs. Today is one of those more random DIYs. About a month and a half ago, I put up a poll on my community tab and I said that stained glass was one of those things that I had never tried, but I had always wanted to learn how to do. And I asked if you guys had any things like that, any craft or art mediums that you wanted to learn that you hadn't ever tried. And some of you said jewelry making and painting and mosaics and a few other things, but 45 to 48% of you said stained glass as well. So I thought, well, maybe we can just give it a try together and I can get the supplies to do a simple project and we'll just see how it goes. But when I started pricing those things and everything I would need to get started, it was a little overwhelming and it was very expensive. And I kind of lost interest at that point and kind of put it on the back burner. But then about 2 weeks ago, I was in Hobby Lobby and I was just browsing around and I came across this. It is a stained glass kit and it has everything in it that I need to create this project except for the soldering iron. And this kit is $20 regular price, but if you got it on a sale, then you could get it for considerably less. And then the soldering iron and stand that I bought was $35. And so for $55, I got everything I needed to give a project a try. Now you might think that's a little spendy, but if you got a less expensive soldering iron or borrowed one from somebody and you got this kit on sale, you could try this for pretty inexpensively. So that's what today's video is going to be. I'm going to give this a try and I'm not going to lie, it's a little terrifying to me. It's very intimidating. And so we're going to see how it goes. The nice thing about this is the glass is already pre-cut for me, so that takes a little bit of the scariness away from it. But we're going to give this a try. I'll let you know my thoughts at the end, show you my finished project, and maybe this would be a good way for you to try stained glass as well. So let's get started and see how it goes.
This is the kit that I chose, and this is by Diamond Tech. I did pick this up at Hobby Lobby. Regular price was $20, and they did have a selection of other styles or designs as well. And one thing I would just say, if you are getting a kit, make sure that it comes with the other items and that it's not just the cut glass. I've noticed a lot of kits are just the cut glass only. These kits at Hobby Lobby had all of the things that I needed to try this project. So let me show you what comes in the kit. You will get all of your cut glass pieces, and these are ready to go. And actually, I was a little surprised that they are about the size of the picture on the box. They're a little bit smaller, but I expected it to be quite a bit smaller, so that was a pleasant surprise. Also in the kit, you will get your instruction sheet, and this is very important. You'll also have a pattern sheet to show you how to lay out your pieces, and you will get your copper foil tape, as well as the flux gel, a brush to apply it, and then you'll get your burnishing tool, your lead came for soldering, and your chain and jump rings for hanging your finished project. Before I started, I read completely through my instructions, and it does give a list of other items that you will need on the bottom of the instruction sheet. So let me go through those. The first thing you will need is obviously a soldering iron. I picked this one up at Hobby Lobby. It was $29.99. It was not the cheapest one. I wanted one that had an adjustable heat setting, not just an on and off, so I got that. And then I also picked up a stand for my soldering iron. I think this is a must because the soldering iron gets very, very hot. It gets up to almost 1,000 degrees. And so you definitely want to have a safe way to hold your iron while you're not using it. You'll also need some T-pins, and these I already had on hand, as well as some safety glasses, very important. And also very important is a pair of gloves to protect your hands. And this is not just to protect them from the heat, but also from the chemical of the flux gel and the lead in the cane that you're using for soldering. You'll need a pair of pliers, and I just had this cheap pair that I have in my craft room. And then it said to use a heat-resistant board, and they do have ones that you can specifically buy for stained glass. I'm just using a piece of foam core board with a canvas board on top of this. This is just from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to give this a try just to see because I didn't want to purchase a board specifically for stained glass. They also said to have a clamp, and I wasn't sure what kind, so I pulled out a few different kinds and we'll see what kind I'm going to need or use it for later. So like I said, I read completely through my instructions, so I kind of had an idea of what to do, and it said to start by washing all of the glass pieces. So I just washed these in some warm water. I didn't use any soap or anything. It's just to get any dust off of them. And then I dried all of my pieces and made sure that they were all clean and dry before I started. Since I will be pinning my pieces down with those T-pins, I did use a piece of foam core board underneath this canvas board from Dollar Tree because it's really thin and I wanted to protect my desktop. And then the instructions said to lay out my pieces like the pattern said. And it also said it's more important for the pieces to fit together as closely as possible than to follow the pattern exactly. So I'm just placing these and laying them out to see how they fit together best. And I did find that there were a few gaps here and there. It was impossible to fit them perfectly together, but in the end, it still worked out fine, and you just want to get them as close as possible. So now the instructions say that step 2 is the foiling. So included in the kit is this copper foil tape, and this is going to go around the edges of all of the stained glass pieces. So I'm going to be using the burnishing tool for this, and it's really pretty easy. Once you get it started, you just want to remove the backing from the tape and place your glass piece down the center, and you're going to wrap this all around the edge of every one of these pieces and trying to center it in the tape as much as possible, because then you're going to fold down the edges on the glass, and you'll see how I do that here in a second. So I'm just going to take my finger, and the part of the tape that is sticking up, I'm just going to fold that down over the glass. This copper foil is actually what the solder sticks to, and so you want to have a nice even edge, if possible, on both sides of your glass. And just so you know, it is impossible to lay this down flat so it doesn't have any wrinkles. It's okay that it has wrinkles. You're going to use the burnishing tool to go over the top of it and smooth it out as much as possible. And it will, even though it looks wrinkled, it will still get a really smooth texture to it. So you just go over it with the burnishing tool until it's nice and smooth. So far, I'm feeling pretty good about this project. I'm not stressing out. It's coming together okay. And I'm just going to continue adding the copper foil to all of my pieces. This one leaf in the kit was actually not flat. It was a little bit warped, and I was wondering if that was going to cause me any issues, but it seemed to still work out okay. So even if your pieces are a little wonky, it's probably going to be okay. And honestly, I'm loving how it's looking so far, so let's keep going. So now that all of my pieces are foiled, it's time to take those T-pins and I'm going to pin around my project so that it all will stay in place. And so I'm just going to take the pins and push them down around each piece so that it's held in place. And this is what it looks like once I have all the pins holding it together. Okay, so now it's time for the part that really intimidates me. So I've never used a soldering iron before. I picked up one that had an adjustable heat setting. It came with this little itty bitty round stand and the tool for adjusting the heat. It also came with instructions, which I did read through so that I kind of knew what to do. And then I also purchased another stand because that little one that came with it was just not going to work. This stand has a little sponge and then it has this really sturdy holder to hold the soldering iron. And so I just assembled that so that it would hold my iron securely. Like I said, these soldering irons can get up to almost 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and so you definitely want to have something that's going to hold it securely. I also found that having the little sponge in the stand was very helpful, but you can just use a standalone sponge as well. It's for getting the excess solder off of your soldering tool. So now I'm going to set the heat on my soldering iron, and I didn't find anything in the instructions that said what to set this at. I Googled and it said beginners should set it at around like 340 degrees Celsius. And I kind of figured out for me and this soldering iron that that was at about a 6. And so that's where I set mine. And it seemed to work okay. So while that is heating up, I'm going to take the flux gel and my little brush, and the instructions say just to brush this thoroughly and evenly over all of the areas that are foiled on the piece. So this is going to help the solder to adhere to that copper foil. And as you can see, it didn't use very much. So now we're going to take the lead came and we're going to just stretch out about a 4-inch segment of the roll and just keep it on the roll. I'm going to hold it by the rolled part, and you want to make sure you have your gloves on for this. And now it's time to try the soldering, and I'm just really nervous about this, I'm not going to lie. So the instructions say to put a little bit of solder at the points that connect on your pieces. So basically you're just putting a little bit on each of the intersecting points so that it will hold the piece together. And this is where I realized that I really probably should have practiced on something first, even if I had just practiced seeing how quickly the lead came would melt on the soldering iron, because it was hard to know what to expect. I didn't know how fast it was going to melt or how fast it was going to set up or really anything. So this was just really trial and error. And so I'm just putting some little dabs of the lead came on the intersecting points, and I just decided to go for it and see how it came out. Once I had a little bit of the lead came soldered onto all of those intersecting points, I removed all of the T-pins, and now the piece is held together and the pins will be out of the way for doing the rest of the soldering. So for this, you're supposed to do it in kind of a one motion where you start at the outside edge and just move both hands together, the soldering iron and the leading, and just move it along the seam. This does require some practice. I didn't have much practice with this. I didn't really have any practice with this. So I found myself kind of going back and forth over this, each of the seams. And really, I think just doing it in one smooth motion is what you're supposed to do. So I just wanted to kind of experiment and get a feel for this. I figured this can be the back side of my project, and hopefully by the time I get to the other side, it's gonna look a lot better. That's the plan anyway. And the instructions did say that if you wanted to smooth out your line a little bit, you could go back over it with just the soldering iron in one smooth motion to kind of smooth that out. I did find that to be helpful, and as I continued, I did get a little bit more confident in this, and I was able to get a little bit better lines and make them a little bit smoother. But like I said, this was my first attempt, and so this side of my project, my soldering is a little rough, but it was good practice. So now I'm going to turn my project over, and I'm going to hopefully do a better job on this side. So once again, I'm going to use my brush and brush the foil using the flux gel. And now I'm going to jump right back in with my soldering iron and see if I can get some smoother lines, and hopefully this side of my project will look neater when I'm done. I was still having some challenges with getting one line done in just one single motion. I think that's kind of a key to getting a nice, clean, smooth line, is to be able to do that line in just one motion without stopping. And so I think that's another place where some practice will help. So here is what my first side looked like. The soldering is a little rough, but the second side is quite a bit better, and so I'm feeling pretty good about that. So then the clamp, it said, was to hold this so that you could make sure that the edges are covered with your lead came with the soldering iron. So I'm going to use my flux gel and brush anywhere where the copper foil is still showing on the edge of my project. And then I'm going to take my soldering iron and just run it over You really don't need to add any more of the lead came on there because there is some excess, especially with me because I was getting a little bit too much on there, and so I had plenty of excess. I just needed to kind of smooth it out around the edges of the project. And one helpful tip here is to make sure you're holding it level so that you don't get drips. So the final step is to add my jump rings to my project so I can add my chain and be able to hang this up. And so I am going to place a little bit of the flux gel on the back side of my project where I want to attach the rings. And I'm going to also add a little bit of the gel to the jump ring itself. And this is easier if you use a pair of pliers to hold your little ring. Then I'm going to put just a little dab of the lead came on with my soldering iron and then stick that jump ring down. And you have to work quickly to do this, but then I just kind of touched it with the soldering iron to melt that so that the ring would stick down into the leading. And then of course I will repeat that process on the other side to add the other jump ring. And you just want to make sure that your jump rings are attached securely because you don't want your project to fall and break. I used my needle nose pliers and some jewelry making pliers to open the little links on my chain and attach them to the jump rings, and then my project was finished. And honestly, I'm super excited about how this turned out. I know it's not perfect, but I still think it looks great. And I kind of feel like I conquered something that has intimidated me for a really long time.
Okay, so now that my project is finished, I have a few thoughts. I think this was a great way to try something out. I know it said you should practice on something first. I didn't really have anything to practice on, so I considered this my practice project. And so if you do have something that you can practice soldering on first, I would highly recommend that because that's basically the hardest part of this is getting those smooth lines for your soldering. And so having a steady hand helps with that, but there is a little bit of an art to that, and practice, I'm sure, makes perfect. And so mine is nowhere near perfect. I am happy with how it turned out for my first time. I am actually really pleased because it turned out better than I anticipated. But I really do think this is a great option. And if you find that it is something that you really enjoy, then you can buy other kits. There are several websites where you can buy kits from. Most of them are just the cut glass, so you will have to buy your leading and your foil and a few things like that. But you could gradually start. And, you know, if you wanted to get into cutting your own glass and grinding it and fitting all the pieces together and everything, you know, that's a whole nother level. I don't know that I will go there, but this is just a good way to start out to see if this is something that you enjoy. So I hope you'll give it a try. I did really enjoy doing this and doing something new, and I think that I probably will get a few more kits to do, and maybe if I get good enough, I can give them away as gifts. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button. It really helps my channel and helps other people to see this video. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell and set your notifications so that YouTube will notify you every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a blessed day.